welcome to my PowerPoint about chip jokers in Balatro. So, chips are actually very interesting. They're super good in the early game because a lot of the oh my god, I said my mic. A lot of the jokers that add chips add a big amount of them, right? And when you're playing a lot of poker hands, typically they'll have anywhere between, say, a straight has 30 chips, a flush has 35, if I remember correctly. So getting, say, plus 30 from Banner, that's doubling your chips. That falls off in the late game, though, for most decks, aside from Plasma Deck, of course, due to the fact that when you get levels in your poker hands, like I just said, hey, getting 30 chips from Banner is really nice when you have, 30 chips from your straight, but one level in Saturn also gives you 30 chips. So if your Joker is giving you, as many chips as like a couple levels in a good poker hand, like Saturn or Saturn or Jupiter, or, any of the really good ones like 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind, etc., then why would you have a Joker that does the same thing that just one planet basically does? That's kind of why chips fall off in the late game. A lot of people, that's my understanding, right? That's what I've heard from a lot of people who are way better than me at this game. That's like just kind of the math throughout the game that I've picked up. Anyway, let's get through it. Of course, we do start with Banner, like I described. Banner adds 30 chips per remaining discard. This really isn't that bad early game, especially if you pick it up on like really early antes. You're not going to have many levels in your poker hands, like I was just describing, so it becomes a lot better there. But it does have the downside of not using any discards. And again, you typically want to use your discards because you want to be getting better poker hands. You want to get value from your tarot card, like your purple seals. Or like say, your other jokers that are based on discards. Then, something like Banner is just like not that great. Yeah, I don't know. Banner is weird. I think it's one of the worst jokers in the whole game, in my opinion. It's just there's so few scenarios where it's better than almost anything else. Yikes. Then there's Arrowhead. Arrowhead gives 50 chips per spade scored. So you can get up to 250 chips, which is a lot. That is a lot in the early game, and can give you a crazy amount of score with even like very minimal molt, right? Because 250 with 4 molt, which you can get from just Jimbo, who gives 4 molt, is 1,000 score. That's a good amount for the early game. Now, this is one of the weaker flush-based jokers, in my opinion. Like, of course, you have stuff like Lusty or whatever that gives like a little bit of molt whenever you score a heart. You have those kinds, and those are definitely worse, but this is like one of the unique ones for spades, and that's part of the reason why I don't think spades are the best. I still think it's I think it's heart, club, spade, diamond, in my opinion, personally. But I mean, in the early game, there is obviously not really anything about this. The only downside to it is opportunity cost, and well, in the early game, there's not very many things that are better. Then there's Bull. Bull gives 2 chips per $1 the player has. This is like pretty good if you have a lot of money. If you have $50, it gives 100 chips. If you have $100, it gives 200 chips. But again, by the time you have that, you're probably gonna have a couple levels in your planets. And well, 200 chips can be a lot. If you have already 200 chips from your planets, then it's like, well, that's not that good. 2 molt. Okay, so if you have 100 chips, adding 100. Here, let's do some math together, guys. If you play high card, it's 5 times 1, right? You can get, and then, so you get 105 times 1. That's 105. Or you could just have, some molt. Say you have 100 chips from your planets, and then adding 100 to that. I don't know why I chose high card. That's not a good example. I should have been talking about like straights or something, because that's easy to get 100 chips in from just planets. Actually, it only takes like 4 planets to get over 100 chips. Because I'm sorry, I'm a little stuttering on this one. My bad. Anyway, like I said, if you have straights, I didn't mean to say high card. If you have straights, you get 4 planets. That's 120 chips. You would have to have 100, or you have to have what, $60 in your account, or like $60 held to make Bull be times 2 chips, right? Or you could just get 2 molt, and 2 molt is effectively times 2 chips. Which one of those sounds easier to you? This is why chips are a little worse, is because you already have such high base chips from your poker hands and from the scoring of the cards. I haven't even brought that up, right? You know, an ace gives you 11 chips, face cards give you 10, and then all the others give you the number based on them. So it's like, well, chips just... I mean, they become worse when you have re-triggers to get more chips. They become worse when you have planet cards. It's just like... Of course, you know, when you do talk about plasma deck, this does all change, right? Having a lot of chips doesn't really matter because it equals out, and that's really strong. But this is for I'm mainly talking about like regular decks, and it's just like, I don't know. They can be really strong. Do not get me wrong. If you have a really high amount of like you have a bunch of like multipliers, then adding chips actually can be really strong. But most of the time, you're not going to have that many multipliers. Most of the time, you're not going to have that many, like that much more molt than you have chips, right? So, yeah. And then there's Blue Joker, of course. It gives you 2 chips per card in your deck, or still in your deck. You have 52 cards. Your first hand will take 8 cards out of that, so it'll go to 44, right? So it'll be 88 chips. I mean, that's decent in the early game, right? It's not amazing. You know, if you have like spectral cards that add extra cards, or if you have like, you know, stuff like Marble Joker, or anything that adds more cards to your deck, you picked up a couple of standard packs, then it's like not terrible, but it's a little awkward to use, and it becomes worse if you have to play more hands. If you're only playing one hand, or you're not discarding, then like, it's okay, but the more you discard, the more hands you play, it just becomes worse and worse, and it's just not that good, I have to be honest. Then there's Castle. Castle gains +3 chips whenever a card of the specified suit is discarded. This means 15 chips per discard. A lot of people like to hate on discards. I'm at the point where I don't know if I'm... I'm at the point where I'm like baiting people, because I do understand that hands are better than discards, right? But when I'm saying that I like picking up discards more than hands, what I mean is that the average deck will have 4 hands and 2 discards. Red deck will have 3, so this is a little awkward, right? Adding +1 hand to 5 hands is a 25% increase. Okay? Adding +1 discard to 2 discards is a 50% increase. That's what I mean when I keep saying I prioritize, like, I like having discards over hands, right? That's what I mean. Let's get back to this. Guess what? You don't have any discards. That's why Castle is a little awkward in higher antes. Of course, you know, you have 3 discards or 4 with red deck if you're on lower antes, so it can definitely be a little better there, but, like, you're only getting 15 chips. And, like, yeah, it scales and it can stay, you know, forever, but, like, there's better jokers if you want scaling chips that stay forever. There's way better ones. We're gonna get to some of them soon. Speaking of ones that have scaling chips there are better options for, we have Square Joker. Square Joker gives +4 chips whenever you play exactly 4 cards. Yeah, so that is permanent, right? You have to play a lot of cards, but that's like super slow scaling. It makes it so you can't play a lot of the better poker hands. You can't play straights, flushes, 5 of a kind, flush house, flush 5, full house, etc. You can play 4 of a kind, 3 of a kind, with 1 extra card, pair, 2 pair, and high card, and you have to match the 4, right? So cards that don't score have to equal up to the 4, so you can't just like play 5 cards out, which is awkward too, because a lot of the time when you are playing hands that don't have 5 scoring cards, you want to be playing 5 cards anyway to get them out of your hand. So it's like, well, damn, this Joker it's kind of really bad, I do have to be honest. I've had so many runs where I'll get Square Joker early on, I'm like, okay, I have this at the best possible scenario I can get it, and it just still feels terrible. It still feels absurdly weak. Okay, give me a minute here. We start with Devious Joker. Devious Joker gives 100 chips if played hand contains a straight. Crafty Joker gives 80 chips if played hand contains a flush. Wily Joker gives 100 chips if played hand contains a 3 of a kind. Clever Joker gives 80 chips when played hand contains a 2 pair. Sly Joker gives 50 chips when played hand contains a pair. These are always going from left to right, top to bottom whenever I make these slides. I forgot to... this one I should have put the names on, I just forgot to, I'm sorry. I think these are all bad. Of course, there's always context, right? If you have, like, get them in the early game, yeah, they're not terrible, but, like, the Jokers that are like these are, like, bottom of the barrel, kind of, like, not intentionally very good. They're kind of just there to fill up a lot of the slots, is kind of how I feel with it. And I mean, like, there's just better jokers that do almost everything these kind of do, right? There's better jokers that affect things when you play pairs, play two pair, play three of a kind, play flush, play straights, right? So it's like, they're fine, right? Of course, 100 chips and then you get a little bit of molt is really good, right? 80 chips with a little bit of molt is really good, right? I mean, Slide Joker's just actually terrible, though. Don't ever pick up Slide Joker, personally. It's so bad. But you get what I mean, right? It can be okay if you already have a little bit of molt, but if you already have a little bit of molt, why do you care about picking these up? Because, again, the chips from the cards you're playing and from your poker hand are more than enough, usually. It's just like, yeah. And they don't benefit from like re-triggers. They are if hand contains, right? So something like you could play flush with you could play like the two player and flush one together, right? Or the pair and flush one, or the straight and flush one, right? You can play them together. So there is that, but like, so the biggest weakness of most jokers isn't that they are necessarily bad, right? It's that there are just more powerful jokers that you would rather have and would replace with them instantly. And all 5 of these, there are just jokers that do almost exactly the same thing as them better, is kind of the thing. Like, I mean, the straight one, right? You have Runner. Yeah, Runner takes a couple times to ramp up, but if you're playing a bunch of straights, then Runner's just way better than the straight one. Or you have two pair, right? If you play, oh god, I forget what it's called. It's like the pants one. That one gives you permanent molt. And like, hey, two pair already doesn't have very high molt. It's like 20 times 2 or something. So, adding chips to that is a lot less valuable than adding molt. I don't know, man. I don't really get the point of these. I think they're just intentionally pack filler, personally, is kind of what I think it is. Make it so, like, I mean, they're all comments, if I remember correctly, so it's kind of just there to, like, make the comment pool a little worse. I don't know. Then we get some actually good chip jokers from now on. We have Hiker and Runner. Hiker permanently gives each scored card plus 5 chips. This is insane if you pick it up in the early game, right? So, like, it makes it so your cards themselves gain more value, which makes it so that you could replace Hiker at any point and still gain value from Hiker. Hiker is pretty bad in the late game, right? Mid game, it's okay. In the early game, it's amazing, right? Because you get so much scoring from it. Again, it's permanent. So any amount of molt gonna make it a lot better. Any amount of just re-trigger is gonna make it a lot better. Hiker, it's just good. I know, like, a lot of people undervalue it and a lot of people overvalue it. I think that it is a solid, strong joker, nothing more than that. It has its complete uses. It's very strong on Ante-1. Do not get that wrong, though. Otherwise, it's one of those ones that you kind of just are passing up because it takes too long to scale for how much you're getting out of it. And then there's Runner. Runner gains 15 chips whenever you play a straight and keeps them permanently. This can go crazy, right? If you play like 2 straights per round, so it's going to happen a lot of times, let's be real here. Play 2 straights per round, you'll get a lot of chips on Runner. It'll get up to 150, 300, etc. chips, and then you could just not play straights anymore because it keeps it permanently. And, a permanent like 300 chips with absolutely no downside, that's really strong. It's better than every other chip option at that point, which, again, isn't going to be too hard to do. 20 hands played of straights, you can do that. You can do that pretty consistently throughout a run. And it'll be better than almost every other chip option aside from like 1 or 2. Actually, I think it's just Wii Joker's the only one that can really upscale that, let's be real here. So Runner has like the highest scale, like the second highest scaling of any of these chip jokers. And it's just so goddamn nice. I love Runner. It's easily one of my favorite jokers. I've talked about this a bunch of times. It gives so much direction to your run. Straights are one of the best poker hands to go for in general. Runner's just my goat. Then we have Odd Todd and Ice Cream. I know people like to hate on these ones. They are really good, actually, in the early game. Odd Todd gives plus 31 chips for each odd scoring card. That's a lot of chips. 155 on a max hand before re-triggers with no downside is pretty good. And it's not even like it's that hard of a condition, right? You just have to play odd cards. Ace, 9, 7, 5, 3. So there's a lot of options there. It's super simple. It's not hard to get. Flushes make it really easy, or of course, like two pair, three of a kind, pairs, four of a kind, full house, etc. Can make it super. You can even get value off it with straights. Not as much value, of course, but pretty good value. It's just super simple. It's a common, so it's easy to pick up, and it's not hard to use. Doesn't require very much setup, and like all you're gonna have to do is discard for some odd cards. Yeah, it's the same thing as all these other chip jokers. Like if you just get a little bit of molt, it really does go crazy. And then there's Ice Cream. Ice Cream gives 100 chips and loses 5 per hand. 5 per hand played. Ice Cream has no setup, no requirement. It's incredibly flexible. It's just a good joker to pick up at certain points in the game, right? Say sometimes you will have a molt that is so high that you do need chips, right? And most of the other options before, like, we got to Hiker, I would say it's still not worth it to pick them up when you do get those scenarios, right? Because there are going to just be some jokers that are still better, even if they are just, say, multiply your molt, right? But something like Ice Cream, Odd Todd, Hiker, Runner, or some of the other ones we'll talk about, then you get to the point where it's like, okay, well, now chips are better than adding more molt. And again, easy to use chips like Ice Cream, really good. Of course, Ice Cream, once it gets to about 60 chips, I think it's worth selling. It's just kind of not that good past that point, let's be real here. It's just too few chips you're getting, but at full 100, sometimes it is the optimal choice to take. Then we get the Scary Face. Scary Face gives 30 chips for each scoring face card. This is actually really strong. It's really good with flushes or straights. Obviously, you can play like pairs and all that junk with it too, but the main use of it is with the Photo Chad combo. Photograph, Hanging Chad. You have it with Hanging Chad, it'll give plus 30, plus 30, plus 30, so 90 off of your first face card. Every other face card, it'll still add more. You can have it with Smiley Face to get more molt there, and then you have Photograph, which doubles your molt. I mean, everyone and their mother knows about, like, the Photograph, Hanging Chad combo. Adding cards like, Scary Face, Smiley Face really does make it a lot better. Not a lot better, but it does help. And I think that Scary Face, it's just super solid joker. It has its scenarios where it's really good. It has scenarios where it's not even that good, right? If you're playing Ancient deck, that's what's called, right? The one where it has no face cards, obviously it's completely useless. But, I mean, that's like a one-off scenario, let's be real here. Of course, as always, I should be saying this more about a lot of these. When you do talk about Plasma Deck, they are all significantly better. Because Plasma Deck, the way that it calculates is different than every other deck. Having just a shitload of chips is typically really good because we'll equal them out, right? So it can be really strong to just do that. In the late game, though, it's easier to get a shitload of molt than it is a shitload of chips, even for Plasma Deck. So, yeah, but it's not like it's terrible. And then there's Stone Joker. Stone Joker gives plus 25 chips per each stone card in your deck. This is, like, not awful. It's pretty decent. It's pretty good. But if you have, like, Marble Joker and Hologram, then it's actually pretty solid. Marble Joker will add a stone card to your deck when you select a blind, I believe. It might be when you enter the shop. But it adds a stone card to your deck. And then Hologram, gives 0.25 molt every time you add a card to your deck. So if you have these three in conjunction, you can actually have a really good build that makes use of these stone cards. Note, if you do play a hand of 5 stone cards, it will count as high cards, so you should probably level up high card because you're going to have a lot of stone cards in your deck, but there is that. Stone Joker, it's fun to play with. I've had runs with it. I haven't won any runs with it in higher antes, or higher stakes, I do have to admit, but it's still fun to play with. Hologram is just really strong, is the thing. Hologram is a really, really strong Joker, especially for an uncommon Joker. So it kind of does have to piggyback off of the strength of Hologram, in my opinion, but still, it can be really strong with Hologram. And then last, but very certainly not least, we have Wii Joker and Stuntman. I still believe Wii Joker is the best chip Joker in the game. I don't think that's a hot take. It gains plus 8 chips every time a 2 is scored. This goes crazy with Hanging Chad, with Hack, with any retrigger, and you can pretty consistently get Wii Joker to 500, even 1,000 chips. I've had many runs where Wii Joker gets to 1,000 chips, and 1,000 chips is a lot of scoring, especially when you have, a good amount of molt. If you have 100 molt, 1,000 chips, that's 100,000 points. That's pretty damn good. It's just a strong Joker. I mean, like, it scales very well. It's just, provides a lot of direction. Of course, it is a rare, right? So is Stunman. So there is that, but like, I mean, it's just good. It also even has the benefit of if it gets flipped when you're playing in, it's like Amber Acorn, you know which one it is. I don't know how much that matters. It's very marginal, but, or marginal, not marginal, but it is there. And then last, but very certainly not least, is Stuntman. Stuntman gives 250 chips and -2 hand size. This is absurd in the early game, right? I've been talking about adding just a tiny bit of molt makes the amount of chips you have go crazy, and yeah, I mean, Stuntman doesn't have that much of a downside, right? -2 hand size, yeah, it can matter, but the whole idea is that you're not getting a lot of the chips from a really high value poker hand when you are playing this. You're going to get almost all of your scoring from your jokers, right? 250, then if you have Jimbo, 4 molt, that's 1,000 score. You have, 10 score, that's 2,500 score, etc., right? So Stuntman can just be so strong early with just a tiny bit of molt. Obviously, it doesn't scale, and eventually, it will technically be worse than just playing more powerful poker hands, right? -2 hand size makes it so playing straights or flushes or 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind, etc. is really hard to do. But, I mean, Stuntman's just good. It's a solid, obviously on Plasma deck, it's absurd, but it's just a solid Joker. I think people really undervalue it, and, like, I get it, right? A lot of people are very reliant on their poker hand being a very high scoring one rather than like playing towards jokers that do it. And that is a trap some people fall into, especially if you do find like Stuntman, they're like, oh, well, it's terrible in this situation, so it must be terrible always. That's just not the case, right? So, yeah. But that's going to be it for me. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think down below. What's your favorite chip Joker? I really got to say mine's still, like, Runner. Runner's, like, one of my favorite, like, top 3 favorite Jokers, to be honest. Wii Joker's awesome. My socials are there on screen, or they're down in the description. Join my Discord. Dude, it's popping off about Balatro. It's so awesome. I've had so many people join about Balatro in the last, like, week. It's so great. And, guys, I have to say this. I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers. It took me, like, half a year to get 7,000 subscribers from Hearthstone, and in almost a week I've gotten 3,000. Almost a week, I have to point that out. It's not a full week, but almost a week I've almost gotten 3,000 subscribers from Balatro. You guys are so awesome. I have to say, I wasn't gonna quit YouTube after I started playing Hearthstone. Obviously, I did Marvel Rivals, but I was definitely on the downtrend of like, hey, how much effort am I gonna put into this? But Balatro, I uploaded a video, it started doing pretty well. I uploaded more and more, and then they just started popping off. That voucher video, which I was wrong about a lot of stuff in that. I do admit I was wrong, mainly because, hey, you can only put so many hours into a game, and then once you put something out there, people get to tell you what you're wrong about, and then you're like, oh, I didn't know that. That's a good scenario. I've gotten better at the game after making these videos based on what people have told me. So it's so nice that I can actually do that, because I'm gonna be honest, when I was making Hearthstone videos, I didn't do anything different. I presented things the same way. I gave my opinion on things the same way. I asked for feedback the same way. And the Balatro videos are just doing way better. People provide way better feedback than they even did with Hearthstone. So it's like, dude, what is this? But you guys, I don't know. I'm just doing a little rant. I had planned, initially I thought I was going to hit 10,000 tomorrow. I put this screenshot at right before I started recording. This is how many subscribers I had right before I started recording. So it is very possible that after this video goes up, I will hit 10,000 subscribers. Tomorrow is going to be one of my most experimental PowerPoints I've ever done. It's going to be PowerPoint about Balatro. Not about anything specific about Balatro, Balatro the game. It's going to be my interpretation on introducing people to Balatro more than just these videos, and I think that's going to be, I already have like a little bit of it made. I usually do these off the dome. I write the things on the thing, or on the side, you can see here, I write all these down as like a thought piece, and then I just like to go off the dome because it makes it feel more authentic in my opinion. So that's how I hope that a wider audience gets to experience those in that way. So I really hope it does well. I'm just ranting, I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I will see you next time. Peace out. Also, I do have to point out, the reason I was talking about getting it on Friday is because that's my birthday. So, yeah. Bye.